The doctor is in, huh? Let's see what this thing is really about here.
Hopefully, I think this is a topic that sometimes generates some heated opinions on different sides, and so I want this to be a really open dialogue, but let's also try to keep it as respectful and fair as possible, because I think this is like an opportunity for everybody to exchange information and try to get to whatever issues, and so that would be my goal for this series here. But we'll definitely have an opportunity for everybody to make comments and ask questions, which should be really good. So I'll let everybody get started here. I really appreciate you guys for showing up. I really appreciate it, and thanks to the Salt Lake Public Library for having us here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan, and also Ryan, for inviting us to do this lecture today. Like Ryan said, my name's Carly Corbett. I'm a bit of a loud talker, and we're a fairly small group, so if you guys can't hear any of us when we talk, I think most of us are movers, so let us know if you need us to use the microphone a little bit more or speak up. So, since we're talking about prevention, I thought it would be helpful to start off thinking about what do we mean when we talk about prevention. So, at basic, when you look this up, prevention is the measures that you take to prevent disease. So I think it's important when you think about prevention to not necessarily equate this with a cure, but we're really looking to try to prevent disease as much as possible. And I think we think a lot about in vaccines, preventing disease in the person who gets the vaccine. That's what we talk about. Oh, you need to get vaccines for your children to prevent these diseases from happening. But there are other benefits to vaccines that are of interest to public health, and that's what I wanted to focus on at the beginning of this part of the talk. So there's a concept that we call community immunity, which is a little bit of a tongue twister. So the other name for this is called herd immunity. I think some people potentially took offense to all this being referred to as herds. So they tried to change the terminology to community immunity. So the idea behind this is that if you have a certain amount of population vaccinated against a disease, you're actually protecting the whole community against this disease that you're vaccinating against. So there, yeah, go ahead.
And what facts are there to back that up?
So the facts that are to back this up is that when you see communities where immunization rates have dropped, so the threshold for this is different for different diseases, and there's nothing to say, oh, so for measles you need to have an 80% threshold within the community, because each person responds slightly differently to vaccines, and diseases are transmitted differently. So I can't tell you that for each vaccine there's not a known threshold limit, but when you see communities where the vaccine rate drops, you'll see jumps in the amount of disease in that area.
But see, now again, there's two sides to every story, and I'll just say it really quickly. My ex-wife caught the swine flu, and it was like, oh, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna die. She has a compromised immune system already, so the regular flu almost killed her. The swine flu barely did anything to her. My son, he didn't get it, and he was with his mom, and he didn't get it, so she was fine. So when people say that it protects the community, I'm like, well, not necessarily.
This is a good example, though, because if the threshold was reached for people who were vaccinated, then those people who can't get vaccinated, so there are some people who there are components of vaccines that because they're immunocompromised, they can't actually receive the vaccine, or because they're allergic to components of the vaccine, they can't get the vaccine. So those are the people that we most want to protect with this herd immunity.
So you want to protect the people that are allergic to the vaccines. How do you do that?
By immunizing the rest of the community. So let me show you a diagram, because I think this will make a little bit more sense. So here we have a group where no one in the community is vaccinated, right? So you can see the little legend on the bottom. So all the people that are blue, these are the people who are not vaccinated. So if you have a disease run through the community, you would anticipate something that was highly contagious, that people got fairly easily, which is the things that we check with, the things that we usually immunize against, or diseases that are have very bad side effects or have high rates of death. Those are things that we look to vaccinate against. So you can see that the majority of the population gets sick. So if we move to a community where we're not at this threshold of what people need to be vaccinated for, so you can see the people in green here, the people that are vaccinated. You can still see the blue people around the outside are the unvaccinated people. There's a few people clustered in the middle who are the people who, in this diagram, are people who cannot get vaccinated for whatever reason.
But see, now again, that doesn't really answer my question. My son lives with his mother. She got the swine flu. He didn't get it. Nobody else in her family got it, and they've all got weak, compromised immune systems outside of my son. I was in contact with him on a regular basis. I never got sick. And the other aspect to that is you say that people can be allergic to certain components in the vaccine. Well, I think all of our bodies are allergic to thimerosal and squalene. I mean, thimerosal is mercury, and we're told not to eat too much tuna because you get sick. And I don't believe any doctor would take that thimerosal separate from the rest of the ingredients by itself. And I even asked the doctor over at the U, and he says no, I wouldn't, because there'd be no purpose and that's dangerous. So my question is so adding something else to it somehow makes it safer? I mean, that logic doesn't really add up. I mean, thimerosal is bad for your body, period. So your bodies are going to be allergic to that because thimerosal and squalene they're not natural. They're not good for you. You got Jenny McCarthy's son who had a problem from vaccines, and I had one in my own family. My nephew Connor, he was a perfectly healthy baby, tested fine. As soon as he got the vaccine, about a month later, he started acting really weird. They said he's now autistic, but he wasn't before. Nobody in my family has that. So again, I see this and I have to question, okay, I want the truth. I don't want to be lied to. I don't want to be spoon-fed. I don't want to be told lies and propaganda, because the reality is there's, not one medical professional that's been able to answer why are we being injected with squalene and thimerosal.
So what I will tell you is, I think the fact that your son got sick and not everyone got sick really lets you know that the immune system is very complicated, as is the body, and your natural defenses are different in everybody, and how much virus you get exposed to, how well you are at the time, all of those are factors that come into play about whether or not someone gets sick. So it's not a simple answer about why does one person get sick and why doesn't another, because there's a lot of other issues at play in that. Thimerosal has been taken out of the majority of vaccines at this point in time, and the few vaccines that do still contain it in 0.0002%. And why don't we get through a little bit more of this presentation, and I think some of your questions will be answered as we go through.
Not a problem.
Okay.
Real quick. Would you be offended if anybody was filming this, using your likeness in any way?
I would say that was not anything that we consented to have done.
Okay. So, if you mind something.
Isn't this a public library, though? Freedom of speech, and the library can't suppress it. I mean, this is an open forum, and if you do that, that is suppressing. I mean, this is turning into Brave New World.